Okay, so I have decided that I'm gonna do a tier list based on what impact does Imaginarium Theater have on these certain characters. Now, this is gonna be very interesting because a lot of characters that normally I would say like a lot of these characters like Chi-Chi, let's just go off with her first. She kind of just became obsolete. But now you're going to be restricted. You're going to want a healer. You're going to, I would say she's better now. So that's the gist of this tier list, right? It's not necessarily how well they're going to perform. This is how the, Imaginarium Theater has affected them. And I think Chi-Chi is going to be a great option to bring because she's a healer and she's cryo. So that's, just a subcategory of, like Charlotte also works as that category. I think generally healers and shielder characters are probably going to be buffed, I would say. I say generally, but I don't think I would say Zhongli is like Zhongli. He's invincible, right? And you could argue he's worse because you can only use him twice now, so he's a limited 5-star. But at the same time, I do just think he's about the same, right? He's just gonna keep you alive. He'll, two teams, right? I'm gonna say like certain characters like Nevi, right? People who are very self-sustaining, don't really need a good team, are gonna end up in a better category compared to characters who do need a good team, who do possibly, really want that. Ganyu, I think she's about the same. She doesn't need a team though, but at the same time, she's not necessarily like, one of these characters that will absolutely clear no matter what, I would say. And I think Hu Tao could be considered worse because Hu Tao wants reactions, right? Ganyu, she can do damage. I don't know. I'll give Ganyu same, so you can sort of see like really strong DPS that can hold his own, destroy things, right, is better because you don't need a competent team with this one. This character, you can do some stuff with her, but she's just not as, as strong, right? And this is assuming that it's not necessarily going to be super breeze every single time that they're going to, do stuff. I am probably going to go ahead and put Wanderer here because one, in wave type content, energy is easier to get, right? And I guess I should explain my Hu Tao one. We'll explain Hu Tao in a minute. But Wanderer, he is really good. He does a lot of damage without any support, really. I used the Trial Wanderer, and he just cleared, the first stage, right? Basically all on his own. I think it was maybe Farazan, but yeah. Characters like Farazan, I don't know how I would rate him. But yeah, let's talk about Hu Tao. The reason why I'm putting Hu Tao here is because, one, she really wants reactions in order to do her damage, right? And two, she really wants, Plunge team to be, competitive damage because Nevi, he's going to sit there and do loads more damage than her because she's not going to have a proper team, whereas Nevi is going to have, no real issues, running himself, right? That's just something, so yeah. And I think another thing, off-field damage characters are definitely a lot better. I'm reserving this, a lot better spot for someone else, but yeah, Yamiko, basically any off-damaging supports like not Kazuha, where's Albedo? Albedo, right? Not that. You could say Albedo maybe could be in that tier, but I think there's one character that it definitely applies to a lot more than every other character in the game, right? So basically, Miko is going to do off-field damage without really requiring any energy, right? She's just going to throw down her things. And it's the same thing with Albedo, right? It's just the same sort of thing, right? That's something that is going to help. Now, Chevy, I'm going to say is... Chevy's a character, I feel like you could say she's worse now because you can't necessarily build a proper team for her. She needs that restriction, right? So let's say you have 3 Pyros and 1 Animo. You can't just throw her on there, right? Because we're 3 Pyros, 1 Electro, and 1 Animo. And that's all you have. Because of the 4, party members, whatever. You get the gist of it. She's, I'm going to say, is worse because you don't really have the ability to make that team, and you don't want to use her unless you're doing that overload team, right? So, yeah. Yanfei, I'm going to say, is actually kind of the same as Hu Tao. They're basically sort of the same character almost. Like, they just want good teams. They want to be able to do those reactions. And, Yanfei's not really going to be able to do that, right? The Traveler, in terms of Dendro, I'm going to say the same. Like, they don't really do much. Their off-field damage isn't really, like, insane. So I think I'm just going to say they're about the same, right? It's not even, like... Because, like, these characters, they're doing off-field damage, right? They're doing off-field damage. It's really good. Whereas the Traveler, he's sort of applying Dendro. And you might not have characters that can take advantage of Dendro, right? So it's one of those things. Ito is a character that I could see you saying is worse just because he can't have his proper team. I think you could say that, but at the same time, I think you can also say he's about the same, depending on where you're looking, because he is able to do. Nah, he's not reliant on reactions, but he doesn't have his team. Like he doesn't guaranteed have Goro, right? That's just I think I'm gonna have to say he's worse because you can't get that Goro with him, and his damage will be heavily nerfed, right? I think overall he was kind of hurt by Imaginarium Theater, which kind of sucks. Because I've been hoping for an Ito buff, but just didn't work. Now, Sucrose, I think because she works with so many characters and is like, Sucrose buffs a lot of elemental mastery, but the thing is, you don't necessarily have reactions in this. But at the very least, you can decrease the elemental res of the opponent you're fighting, or the opponent you're fighting, and that'll just be a buff, right? There's not many characters that can just sort of, a lot of the Animo characters can do that, right? Because Jean will be put up here in a minute. But yeah, I think Sucrose, just because she's able to decrease the res, and compared to running someone like Alhaitham on your team, that definitely, I think, increases Sucrose's value. And I think it helps that Kazuha won't necessarily always be available for you. So Sucrose actually, yeah, I would say she's valuable now. Farazan, I'm gonna say she's probably worse. You might not have an Animo DPS at all. And what is Farazan doing after you don't have an Animo DPS? Like, I don't think that Farazan, like, we're gonna have Farazan, Goro, I think Mika. Yeah, I mean, Mika, you talk about Mika, like, dude, he literally is supporting one character, although he is a full team healer. That is one thing. It is one thing that he is a full team healer. So I think, like, Mika, I would say, so I could see you saying Mika is worse and then Mika is better because he's a healer. I think I'm gonna say Mika's better because now it's not just like, hey, you're only gonna ever use him when you have his physical crit damage rate. I think I'm gonna say he's better because now you're gonna actually use him as a team-wide healer, which generally he was never gonna be used for because you have other options, right? But in Imaginarium Theater, you don't have other options, which is why I think he's better, right? Now, Mona is a character that I'm not necessarily, like, super high. Like, I don't know a lot about her, right? But I think I can look at her energy cost real quick. Her energy cost is only 60, but I think I'm just going to say she's about the same because her energy cost is 60. It is the number one thing that makes her good, right? Her burst is the number one thing that makes her good. I think I'm just going to say she's about the same. I don't really see too much movement here. I am thinking about putting Ganyu above here because she doesn't need reactions to be good unless you're running her on, like, Blizzard, which you don't necessarily have to do. You can run her on Wanderer's Troop. It's not like Hu Tao, who literally she's going to perform worse because now she doesn't have a proper team, which, sure, Ganyu's not going to do that, but she's not going to suffer nearly as much as, Hu Tao, right? Hu Tao not having Vaporize is actually a massive L for her, right? Zhao, I think I might go ahead and put him in worse also because, one, you need his burst, so you need another Animo character who can recover his energy, right? And I got really lucky with my Zhao run, and I had, like, Sinyun, I had Farazan, I think, and I had Sucrose or something like that. Something along those lines. And I think Zhao, honestly, yeah, I think he definitely helped. And sort of the same thing with Sucrose. But then again, I feel like you're always going to, pick Kazuha as your guy, so I don't necessarily, I think Kazuha's about the same. Like, you're going to get the same value because Kazuha's already just so good. He's the number one pick that you always pick. It's not like he's some incredible, like, secret option that's just been unlocked. He's sort of about the same, right? It's like Zhongli. Like, you're not really, going towards him because he's now your only option. Whereas these guys, I think, are, like, now you're going towards them. Like, Sucrose, yeah, sure, she's not exactly that, but she also functions differently, right? I don't think that, like, every single Animo character, like, I don't think this is huge. Just like Hu Tao, Diluc is basically, worse because he doesn't have reactions. He's very reaction dependent, right? Zhao, like we said, he's energy, right? Ito, he's energy, right? And he's also just, like, worse because he doesn't have supports, right? So I think overall, because it's like Ito and Zhao, like, there's a difference between, I'll put her up here now, I guess. There's a difference between Arlecchino and, Hu Tao, because Arlecchino, she's just so overpowering, even without reactions, that you just you're good to run her, right? Like, if I was able to, I would run my Arlecchino just without any issues. Like, I would just go ahead, run her, like, solo. I think that's legitimately what I would do, and I would be able to get 2 free uses out of her, which is why I think she's gotten better out of this. These 2 characters are just so oppressive that it's like, if you were able to, you could get 2 free runs out of them and save up a whole bunch of characters, which, I mean, you can't really, but, you know, you can save your supports because you don't have to use your supports on these guys, right? Beto, I mean, yeah, I'm going to say she's worse because she has so much energy. Like, she needs so much energy. I'm going to say she's worse. I don't see it. Exactly. You know, Yoimiya desperately wants a shielder. She's worse, right? A lot of the pyro DPSs who really want reactions, and Yoimiya even, you know, who really wants a shielder and reactions, right? Yeah. All right. It's time. It's time. Oh, no, nope. It's not that time. Nope. 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 It's Venti. Yeah, Venti. There is. Venti basically can just win you stages. You can outright win stages because Venti is just going to be so oppressively dominant with his, you know, grouping. It's actually like, you know, Venti, this is great content for Venti because you can only use them twice anyways. So all you have to do is fight 2 AoE stages and then you've maxed out Venti's effectiveness and he didn't have to deal with those whole boss, you know, shenanigans, right? Like, Venti actually is the #1 character, I think, that benefited from this, you know, change in Imaginarium Theater, right? Cole, she's not really doing all-field damage. I wouldn't say she's worse. I think she's basically just the same as Dendro Traveler. Yeah, I think that's just simple as that. We're going to say Chiori is better because she's just doing all-field damage with her E. Not really. It's just like Albedo. It's basically better Albedo. It's exactly the same. Amber's about the same. I don't think anybody's actually like going to pick her. Yeah, I'm not really. And then her burst is really where she gets her damage from. Yeah. Alhaitham is worse. Alhaitham needs a good team, and Alhaitham might not have his good team. So he is worse just by, you know, existing in this. Kuki is worse. As much as I hate to say it, like, Kuki's worse. Risley is an interesting character. Risley is pretty reliant on melt, right? I'm gonna say that Risley got worse, actually. I'm surprised. I didn't think, like, Risley is really, he did get worse, right? Because, like, he is like extremely reliant on melt. And I mean, this guy, we could probably say Nilou got absolutely destroyed by this. Like, Nilou actually is like the #1 worst character who, like, has to deal with this, other than like Chevy. But Chevy you can at least still use. Nilou gets basically nullified. Yeah, I would not. But other than that, Risley, he's gonna be just a character just like, you know, every other character here. He's gonna be hurt because he can't do reactions. Traveler, the same with Traveler. Yep, makes sense. Shinha, I'm gonna probably about the same, maybe. Shinha can reduce cryo res and physical res, but, like, there's so limited characters that can. I think I'm gonna say Shinha is worse because you might just literally not have a character that can use her buff, and then you're just sort of stuck with her, and you could have to use her for a dead slot. I think because she's so specific in her support, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say she's worse. Rosaria, I would probably have to say she's worse just because, I mean, she is I don't know, because she is giving whoever is on field crit rate, which is a good support ability to have, right? And then she's decreasing physical res, which just is so limited that it doesn't matter, which basically gets nullified because of this, because you can't build proper teams. And then she's also, you know, going ahead and doing off-field damage with her burst, but that's with her burst. She needs another cryo character, which you might not have in order to, you know, seriously be able to continuously pop that burst, you know, effectively. So it's like, how much do you value the crit rate? Because the crit rate you could value as a support ability, you get 15% crit rate compared to running another main DPS, it could be considered better. I think you can make the case that she is better, but you can also make the case that she is worse. I don't know which one I would actually put her in. I don't. It's very. I'm gonna probably say better because she is a, you know, 15% crit rate. You're gonna bring her over someone else. Yeah, I would say probably better because generally you're not bringing Rosaria as, like, you know, the de facto support for a character, right? You have like other options. Whereas now it's like you have so limited options that Rosaria's 15% crit rate that she can give is looking really nice. Fiorina, I'm going to say worse because she's draining the health of your main character, right, that you're on field with. And if you have no way of recovering that health, then you have a bigger chance of dying, right? But she is also doing off-field damage like these other characters. But at the same time, she's draining your health. I'm going to say Fiorina worse just because you basically really want a healer. At least a singular healer. Maybe if you had like a way of getting like always having a healer, but I can't exactly confirm and say, yeah, sure, that's gonna help. Candace, I haven't really said it much, but like there is a sort of value in having the application, right? Candace does have application of Hydro, right? And she does give normal attack damage bonus, which is good on a couple of characters. I would have to say normal attack damage bonus or normal attack damage isn't really useful on a lot of characters, but I think you could say she's better because now she basically has no competition really on who you're picking. She can literally be the only Hydro character that you have, right? Which can help. I'm gonna say she's better because you just wouldn't use her in actual gameplay. Like there's very limited times where Candace is the character that you pick, right? It's the same sort of thing as Rosario, where it's just like there's so limited times that it's like, yeah, now that she's a Hydro character who can apply Hydro and get these Pyro characters there vaporized, yeah, sure, I'll give her the better, sure. Aloy, I'ma say I don't know a lot about this character, so I'm just gonna put her sort of in the same. I don't really, she wasn't like, she wants melt, I'm assuming. Yeah, I don't know a lot about the character. I'm not even gonna put her on the thing. Like I haven't seen a lot of her in a while. Dea, I think Dea probably is better because she is able to, you know, increase. I think she can sort of heal you or something along the lines of that. But she can increase your interruption resistance, which can be good for certain characters. And then she can also function as like these guys got worse because they were already such good options as DPSs. Dea was not a good option as a DPS, but now you can actually go ahead and be like, oh, well, Dea is the only DPS that I have, or Pyro DPS that I have. Might as well run her, right? That's actually, yeah, I'm going to give that to her. Baiju, I'm going to give him, you know, that better because he's a healer. You want more healers now, and I think generally, I mean, Baiju, he was pretty good before, but now he's like, you can run him just for his sole healer role, so I think he is better because of that. Goro is worse because you need the 3 Geos for basically all of his stuff. He only buffs defense, which is limited. Do I need to keep saying stuff? Sinnoh is worse because he really wants a proper team, which has a lot of Dendro and Hydro and, you know, all that stuff. Kirara, she is a shielder, so she's going to inherently sort of gain a value out of, you know, being a shielder. She also applies Dendro for a little bit. Yeah, I think just generally, I'm just going to take the shielder, right? Because she's, you know, she also just wasn't a character that you really would pick either, right? She's not a character that you would pick. You would pick someone else over her. So I'm going to say now, because they're limited, you know, she's better. Chongyun, I would say he has to be better, right? Like, he has to be better. Not only for, like, Chongyun isn't better because he's, you know, actually usable, more usable. I'm going to give Chongyun better because the dude is a slot that you can throw away. He's basically a throwaway character because of that 4 party member restriction, and you can't decrease it. I'm going to say you can use Chongyun as a trash slot, basically. You can just fill him in. I think that can actually be his role on this, and I think that's where he is better. Because there's very, very little time where you actually want to give yourself cryo infusion. There is so little time, and he's doing off-field damage on his burst. There's nothing other than the fact that he can be a trash slot. Then, yeah, it's actually just you can have a trash slot. That's all it is. Kokomi, I'm going to have to say she's better because she's a healer. You know, like I said, I think she's a healer. She's also doing the same sort of thing as Candace, where she wouldn't be your first choice as a sole Hydro applicator, but now she might be your only Hydro applicator, right? Layla, I'm going to say she's shielder and she's cryo, and she wouldn't be your first, you know, character choice as, you know, a shielder or, you know, your cryo applicator, but now she is. Kujosara, I'm going to say she's worse because she has, you know, her electro damage bonus, and only using her twice. Her attack buff is so little, you know, her burst is where she gets her most of her damage, and it's not really, you know, there. Raiden, I'm going to say better. The reason why that being is because Raiden now is recovering a whole bunch of characters' energies And I think she can make a lot of, let's put Shangling on the team already. Not the team, but like on the tier list. So Shangling, I'm going to say worse because, you know, she's entirely reliant on her burst. Raiden fixes that, right? Your Raiden will keep these people's bursts up, right? She'll make it so Kujosara's burst is actually usable, right? Aside from all the attack buffing and stuff, right? We're going to talk about, like, the burst is actually usable, right? Considering, you know, Shinha's burst is actually usable, sort of, right? So she basically gets rid of energy problems, which you were definitely going to have with, you know, these wonky teams that you're forced to build. Noelle, I'm probably gonna say worse because she doesn't have access to Goro or like a really good team, really, and she's not doing much damage on her own, right? Yunjin, I'm gonna say worse because she's only buffing, you know, normal attack damage bonus, and that's it, right? You don't necessarily get to choose that Yunjin is gonna be paired with your normal attacking damage bonus character, right? Bennett, I think we're just going to say he's about the same, right? There's just so many attack scalers. I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, well, HP scalers are so common. No, I think there's a load of attack scalers that are definitely going to benefit from Bennett, right? You know, he does get it off of his burst, but you're building Bennett really high energy recharge anyways, which it's not the same as Beidou and Kujosara because these guys, I mean, I believe... Yeah, both of these characters, Beidou and Kujosara, have 80 cost bursts. Bennett has 60 cost. He can recover basically half of his energy with one E-skill, right? Tignari, I'm going to say he's worse because he's heavily reaction-based, right? And that's another thing. Raiden, I mean, EM Raiden, you know, is based on reactions. But you can also just build a DPS Raiden, and she can work on basically on any team, really. I'm going to say, you know, Tignari's worse just because he's, you know... He is worse because he can't do reactions, right? Same with gaming. Gaming is literally just a 4-star version of Hu Tao right now. That is it. Sinyun, I'm actually going to say, is really buffed, right? She really got a buff because of how she, you know, 1, heals, and 2, she now lets everybody do a plunging attack, which is, you know, certain characters really want to do that, like Diluc and other stuff, right? It's not bad. Charlotte, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put her in there. All right, you guys cannot see the tier list all the time anymore. No. So Charlotte, I'm going to put in here just because she's a healer, right? So I think that's just going to be what we do. Lenny, we have Lenny here. Now, he is going to be there because, well, he just wants a lot of pyro characters, and he's not going to be able to have a lot of pyro characters, right? Eula, honestly, no, she's worse. I was about to completely forget how bad her energy is. Eula is so bad for energy, I'm not giving her a better or same at all. There's no way. Jean, I will say she's better because Jean actually is, you know, better. I think, 1, she's able to, you know, use Viridescent, you know, Res Shred, which normally you wouldn't make use out of much. And then 2, she's able to heal the entire team, which is great because you're limited on who you can bring, right? Keqing, she's reaction-based. She just can't be... Ayato is actually a decent damager, I would say, at like without any sort of, you know, like reactions, I would say. So you don't need specifics, but I would say like if you have like minus 40% res and then that's it, I would say he can get the job done to a certain extent. He can also function as a hydro applicator. Actually, I didn't even think about that for Ganyu. Ganyu can function as a cryo applicator also if you really need it. Yeah, I'm going to say Ganyu's better. Also, because Ganyu now, you wouldn't normally... Well, actually, there's so little cryo applicators in this game. I would not be so surprised to say that you use Ganyu as your first option. But Ganyu here, she's good. She can be used sort of as a flex. That's actually really valuable for these two. That is actually really valuable. Something that I wasn't even thinking of. Both of these two are actually, like, you know, swappable roles. Like, you can use them either for support or DPS, which I think is huge for this. And I guess you could do the same with Raiden, but it's just kind of weird. Lynette, I'm gonna honestly say better, maybe. I think she's pretty good. She's not reliant on reaction because Swirl is her reaction, right? Yeah, I'm gonna say she's better. Xingqiu, I'm gonna say he's about the same because he's so strong already. He's your #1 Hydro Applicator. He's not really doing anything worse. You can run Sack Sword on him, so he doesn't have any energy issues, right? Yeah, I think we're gonna go same with Xingqiu. Fremine, I would say he's worse just because he doesn't really have the guaranteed access to Mika. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a lot about Fremine. I'll be real. I'm gonna say he's worse, but I could be misremembering a lot of his kit. Cave, he's worse because he relies on Bloom, which he just might not have, right? Tartaglia, I'm actually going to say is better because he's sort of like he's great for AoE, and you can just use him in the AoE phases, and his Riptide will just destroy everything, right? I think, honestly, Tartaglia will say better just off of that, right? You know, AoE phases destroyed. Ayaka, I don't know. I would say probably worse because there is AoE phases, but at the same, I don't know. I would, you can't use her as a cryo applicator, really. I'm gonna say, do I do the same? She isn't really hurt or anything. Like, she sort of just is Ayaka already. Like, she's less, it's sort of what I was saying with Ganyu, right? She doesn't really rely on reaction, but she's not doing a lot to make her seem better than she did before, right? And you could, yeah, I think overall we're just gonna put Ayaka in the same. She's not really changed much. Ningguang, I don't know necessarily whether I should give Ningguang better just based off of Goro existing, right? Even though Goro is in worse, there's a reason why he's in worse, and that's because he can't guarantee himself Geo characters. Whereas if you're using Ningguang and you have Goro, then you can say Ningguang is better because normally you would not bring Ningguang at all for her value. She also does buff Geo damage bonus, I'm pretty sure, and like hits with her, whatever you want to call it. Kaya, I'm gonna say, is he better? I don't know, because Kaya, the thing is with him, he is a really good cryo applicator, and he is oftentimes used as like a Diluc cryo applicator. I think Kaya is just, we're gonna put him in better because he's a cryo applicator. I will put him in same, honestly. I'll put him in same. Hazo, we're going to put him in better because he's not reliant on reactions. He's very, easy to just go ahead and use, right? I think we're just going to put Hazo on here. Xinyan, she doesn't have access to Mika, but then again, Hazo doesn't have access to you. I think we'll put Fremine in. I think not relying on reactions is a good thing for all these characters, right? I think that is something. Like, you can not rely on any reactions and just have like off-field damage supports like Albedo or something, right? I think that does help out these characters. Toma, we're gonna put him in better because he's a shielder, right? I think it's just all like shielders that beyond like Zhongli are actually just like the option, right? I think generally that's just gonna be it. Yelan, I'm gonna say probably got worse because Yelan doesn't necessarily like, you don't get a lot of value out of switching to sacrificial, right? Xingqiu, he doesn't hit that hard to begin with, but if you switch Yelan to sacrificial, right, in order to get your energy, one, it could not be enough. I've had it to where it's not enough sometimes. And then two, Yelan is kind of not that good on her Hydro application, sort of. But then again, that could also be a positive for her because now she's a Hydro character that you wouldn't normally use as your sole Hydro applicator. I think I'd give Yelan better, probably. Diona better. She's a healer, shielder. She's doing great, honestly. Sayu probably would have to say better. She's not reliant on reactions. She's able to do her damage without having to worry about anything. Yeah. Dory is worse just because she has to rely on reactions. We have Klee. I'm going to say she's worse because she has to rely on reactions. Nahida, I'm going to say she's worse because she has to rely on reactions, sort of. Like, she's an off-field and EM support, but like, she still is worse because she has to rely on reactions for damage off field, right? Razor, I'm going to say probably, full EM Razor is a thing, but you can also just do physical Razor, which I think makes him better because he is able to do damage and he's not necessarily reliant on his burst, if I remember. I'm going to go read his kit real quick. Razor does get a lot of attack speed off of his burst, which you can't guarantee due to its pretty high cost. I think it's 80. Yeah, his burst is 80, so I do think that Razor is going to be... you could do physical Razor, but I do think that he is worse because his burst is like a huge part of his damage, and now you can't guarantee that burst. Fischl's there because she's off-field damage, E-skill, sure, whatever. You don't... Like, she's not guaranteed full 100% uptime, but I think she is better because, she is just toss your E-skill down, do damage. Yao Yao is better because she's a healer that you wouldn't normally use, but now you can use. Lisa, I would say, is probably worse because she's heavily reaction-based. She doesn't really do much. her defense decrease is on her burst, which I just don't think that is actually gonna be helpful, and it's only 15%, although only is kind of a thing. that only is a thing. Navia. Navia, she's not, she wants a lot of elements, if I remember. I'm actually gonna have to read her kit too. Navia is based on reactions, and it's not, Geo reacts with everything and gets crystallized, you know, things, right? I'm gonna give Navia a pass because all it is give reaction, like crystallized reactions, but she does, well, actually, no, she's worse. Yeah, she doesn't, like, do geo damage, if I remember. Yeah, Navia isn't doing geo damage herself beyond her E skill, so we need another geo character to trigger and get crystallized reaction, like, good enough, a good enough amount of times. So yeah, I'm gonna say also Chloride is just awful. I feel bad for the Chloride copers that sat there and said, like, oh, Imaginarium Theater will be made for her, don't worry, she'll be fine. Nah, bro, it must feel so bad. Sethos, I haven't used him at all. I haven't even looked at his kit. I'm not gonna rate him at all. Segway, she's a healer. She's a healer. She's better. You know, I mean, we do say better, but this is she was out. She was out before, so I mean, she is better because she is just a healer. So yeah, here is the tier list, guys. Yeah, here it is in all of its glory. Yeah, it's not really that serious of a tier list, but it's just something to show, like, what characters kind of, you know, got screwed over by Imaginarium Theater and its sort of, you know, policies and stuff, and what characters sort of benefited from it, which is a lot of obscure characters, and then also some, you know, a couple that are, like, just there, you know, like they're gonna sit there and just destroy, right? That's just my thoughts on who actually got better on, you know, this. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.